Shalom. So today's lesson is what happened to the Israelites. There's a lot of different theories, there's a lot of different opinions about what happened to them. But we're going to dive into the Bible today, and we're going to use this as the main and first source to understand or to maybe um, throw away some of the different theories and ideas that's out there. And so to start us off, we're going to talk about what is some of those theories that people have. So I went to ChatGPT to get a non-biased opinion about what is the top four theories that people have concerning what happened to the biblical Israelites. Of course, the first one that came up is that the Jewish people in Israel today are the Jews of the Bible. Another one is that historians claim that the 10 tribes that once they was assimilated and once they went into captivity, that they kind of just ceased to exist as a people. Another one is that there's different groups all around the world that have different traits, cultures that's very similar to that of the Israelites. Some of them even have somewhat similar histories. And so we're going to see which one of those three sounds the most logical or can be proven with the Bible. And then lastly, we're going to talk about replacement theology just a little bit. The reason being is because a lot of people say, a lot of Christianity churches would say that it doesn't matter who the Israelites anymore. The physical Israelites, the physical descendants have been replaced with spiritual Israelites. So once again, we're going to go into the main source, the only source that really matters, and that's here, this Bible. And we're going to see what is the actual truth that we can prove from the word. And so this lesson is based off of Hosea 1, verse 10 and 11. And so let's get 10 and 11 for us. Hosea 1, chapter 10 and verse 11.
This is the book of Hosea, chapter 1 and verses 10. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in that place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appointed themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel.
Now, in order to understand this verse, we need to do a little bit backtracking because we need to understand what's going on. We need to understand why is there a children of Judah and the children of Israel. Before I came into this truth, I didn't know or understand why there was two distinct groups here. I was actually told that one of those groups was spiritual Israel and the other one was the physical Israel. So we're going to backtrack and we're going to understand the split that happened in Israel. And so we're going to go to Exodus 19 and 5, and we're going to start to understand what happened in the past to lead up to the split. So let's get Exodus chapter 19. Let me get 5 through 8.
This is the book of Exodus, chapter 19 and 5. Now, therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. 6. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. And Moses came and called for the elders of the people and laid before their faces all these words which the Most High commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, All that the Lord hath spoken, we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Most High.
And so we see here at Exodus 19, 5 through 8. This is a contract that's being written between the Most High God, who we know as Yahweh, the world knows as, well, some people say Jehovah, most people just say God. We know him as Yahweh. So we see this is the contract that Yahweh has made with the children of Israel. He said, these are my special people. They're going to be peculiar. They'll be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. But it also says that you have to do what I say. And so we're going to see that this is what the law of Moses, that people call it the law of Moses. But this is what the law of Moses was for. These was the things that they was signing up to say, yes, we will do these things that you have told your servant Moses, and we will follow these things. So now we're going to read Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 1. We'll get a better understanding of the pros and cons of this contract.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth.
All right. So we see that if they was to obey the Lord's voice, they was going to be put above all the other nations. They was going to be special. There's going to be somebody to be envious of because of how great this nation would be because of their special relationship with God. Only thing they had to do though was obey the voice of God. Obviously, in Hosea, that's not what happened because that's why they split in the first place because they was going off. And we're going to get more into that. We're going to understand why they went off and understand what happens when you go off. Because Deuteronomy chapter 28, 1 through 13 is talking about the blessings. But we're going to see if they earn the blessings. Let's go to First Kings chapter 12. And we're going to get verses 4 and 5. This is picking up in the story. This is after King Solomon. This is where his son came in to start ruling. And we're going to see, kind of skip around in First Kings, Second Kings to try to understand what happened during this time period.
This is the book of First Kings, chapter 12, and verse 4. Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now, therefore, make thou the grievous service of the father, and his heavy yoke which he put upon us lighter, and we will serve thee. And he said unto thee, depart yet from 3 days, then come again to me. And the people departed.
And so we see that King Solomon's son, Rehoboam, he had a choice, or he was petitioned by the people. He said, hey, your father was really hard on us, and like we just need a break. That's pretty much what they're saying right here. So now he had to consult with the wise men, but unfortunately, he also consulted with peers that was of his age. And so we're going to see what he did. We're going to skip down to verse 19 and 20.
This is the book of First Kings, chapter 12 and 19. So Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day. And it came to pass when all Israel heard that Rehoboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation and made him king over all Israel. There was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only.
And so now we see in verse 19, this was the results of Rehoboam's actions. Instead of lightening the yoke on Israel, he decided, no, I'm going to listen to my peers and I'm going to make this yoke unbearable. They're going to think that my father's yoke, my father's workload on them was a piece of cake because I'm going to be way worse. Now we see that they've put a new king over them. This was Jeroboam that was that was made king over Israel. This is when the split happened. And so now we understand that there is two kingdoms, but both of these kingdoms still have a covenant with the Most High God. So now we're going to go to 1 Kings 12 and 28. We're going to continue to understand what's going on.
This is the book of First Kings, chapter 12 and 28. Whereupon the king took counsel and made two coals of gold, calves of gold, and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold, thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt.
And
And
so
he
now, wait 1 second. So now we're talking about what Israel started doing under the rulership of King Jeroboam. Immediately, he started doing idolatry. Like immediately, he started to go off and to get away from what the King Solomon had done for years, what King David had done for years, and that was serve the Most High and hearkened unto his voice. So let's get 31 and 32, and that's going to understand a little bit more of what they did.
This is First Kings 12 and 31. And he made an house on high places and made priests of the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi.
So we're
And
going to
royal,
pause right for 1 second. And so once again, this is going against what the Bible says. The Most High had already said, he said, hey, these are my priests. This one tribe of the 12 tribes is the tribe of Levi. These are my priests. Jeroboam did not have the right. He did not have the power to go and make his own priest. Once again, he's going off. He's going off extremely fast. Let's get 32.
and Rehoboam ordained a feast in the 8th month of the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah. And he offered upon the altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priest of the high places which he had made.
Once again, this is all bad. He's making his own priest. He's making his own feast days. He's making his own um, everything that he wants to do. He's running away from the Most High God and deciding to do that. He wants to do whatever he wants to do. So once again, we're seeing that he is not following, hearkening onto the voice. He's not going to get the blessings. So when we're looking at Israel, no, the blessings do not fit the 10 tribes of Israel. Let's get First Kings 14 to 15. We're going to see what the results of all of this was.
This is the book of First Kings 14 and 15. For the Most High shall smite Israel as a reed it shaked in the water, and he shall root up Israel out of his good land, which he gave to their fathers, and shall scatter them beyond the river, because they have made their groves, proving the Most High to anger. And he shall give Israel up because of the sin of Rehoboam, who did sin and who made Israel to sin.
And so now we see we're still talking about Jeroboam of northern kingdom. He got kicked out of the land. This is what that means, and that's how they was able to be conquered. If he was to hearken to the commandments, if he never would have left those commandments, he would have never the nation of Israel would have never been taken out and would have never been able to be defeated by the Assyrians. Let's actually understand what happened to Southern Kingdom though. Let's see if they was any better. Let's get First Kings chapter 14 and verse 21. I want you to get the first sentence, but then drop down to 22. We don't really need the uh, how old he was and things of that sort. So let me get 14 verse 21.
21. And Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. Rehoboam,
22.
22.
Mhm.
And Judah did evil in the game sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins, which they had committed above all that their fathers had done. For they also built them high places and images and groves on every high hill and under every green tree. And there were also Sodomites in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations which the Most High cast out before the children of Israel.
And so now we see here, Northern Kingdom quickly went off. Southern Kingdom quickly followed them a little bit later. They is both of them was disqualified from the blessings. And that's why I didn't even read the blessings of Deuteronomy 28, because that's not what neither kingdom got. So let's get 2 Kings 17 and 6, and we're going to read about how this northern kingdom was actually conquered.
This is the book of Second Kings, chapter 17 and verse 6. In the 19th year of Hosea, the king of Assyria took
So Mary,
Samaria and carried Israel away in Assyria and placed them in Halah and in harbor by the river of Gazan and in the cities of Medes.
Okay, and so that we see this was the result. Once again, we're just building the foundation to understanding what happened to them in the past. Now we're going to get what happened to the Southern Kingdom. Let's get 2 Kings 24, 1 and 2.
This is 2 Kings 24 and 1. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jeconiah became his servant 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him. And the Most High sent against him bands of the Chaldees, and bands of the Syrians, and bands of the Moabites, and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to the words of the Most High, which he spoke by his servants, the prophets.
And so we see right here, Southern Kingdom pretty much had the same fate. It was just a little bit later. And so also too, when we're reading the rest of the Bible and we're reading about when Jesus Christ, or what the world knows as Jesus Christ, as we know as Yahweh Shai, when he was on the scene, when all his apostles were going around, uh, Judah was already a conquered city. It was a province of another um, government, and that's why they did not have their own autonomy at this time period anymore. And so before we get into what the what the present day look like for them, we're going to skip around to the future now that we've established the past, because we want to understand, does it matter who the Israelites are today? Can we go into the Bible and say like, hey, this matters or this doesn't matter, or maybe spiritual Israel came, so maybe we need to prove the spiritual Israel point. So let's get a few verses on that to try to understand what is going on in the future when it comes to future prophecy. Let's start off with Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31.
This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 31 and 31. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Keep reading.
32.
Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the days that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they broke, although I was an husband unto them, saith the Lord.
So now we have a little conundrum here, because some people would say, oh, spiritual Israel matters at this point. But when I'm looking at 31, 31, we're talking about the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Now that we understand that past, we understand that, okay, we're talking about restoring them. That's what the day of Jezreel is. So now, but we're not going to totally rule it out yet. We're going to get 2 or 3 witnesses to further prove or disprove what we're talking about. Does it matter who the Israelites today are? Does the future prophecy still talk about physical descendants? Let's get Matthew chapter 1 and verse 21, because we want to talk about what Yahushua is saying, or what Yahushua came to do.
This is the book of Matthew, chapter 1 and 21. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins.
And who did Yahushua? What was his tribe? He was of the tribe of Judah. So we're still, the Bible is still painting a very vivid picture that we're still talking about the physical descendants. He's talking about saving his people from their sins. That doesn't say everybody. And you can go through a lot of different translations. It does not say all people from their sins. But let's get a third witness. Let's go all the way to the end of the Bible. Surely, if there was a change, if there was a different plan that was set from the beginning, Revelation has to have it. It's the end of it. So let's get Revelation chapter 7 and verse 4. Let's understand what's going on and if it's still the physical descendants.
This is the book of Revelations, chapter 7 and verse 4. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel.
Mm. Let me get
Of,
5.
of the tribes of Judah were sealed 12,000. Of the tribes of Reuben were sealed 12,000. Of the tribes of Gad were sealed, 12,000.
I'm not gonna make you read 12,000 12 times. Let's skip down to 10 and let's see what's going on.
This is Revelation 7 and 10. And cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our power, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb.
So once again, even inside Revelation, we're still talking about physical descendants. This is talking about 12,000 from each physical tribe that was established way in the beginning. I don't see a spiritual Israel being switched up here. And a lot of times when people are talking about that spiritual Israel, they like to go, "Oh, let's read this one verse right here," and then they're gonna close the Bible. They're not gonna look at no context of what that chapter is actually talking about. The chapter could be talking about hypocrites, and they're gonna say, "Nope, this one, you're not a Jew. A Jew is on the N word. Close the Bible. Don't read the rest." No, that's talking about hypocrites. That doesn't make sense. But let's talk about this salvation, because once again, why do they need to be saved? Let's go to Luke chapter 1, verses 68, and let's still continue to paint this picture about what the Bible is telling us about these physical Israelites.
This is the book of Luke, chapter 1 and 68. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he have visited and redeemed his people.
Mm. Continue. Let me get all the way to 71.
69. And have raised up an horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as
Mm.
as he
Okay.
spoke, as he
Continue.
spoke by the Salaki. You say what now?
Go ahead. Continue.
As he spoke by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been sent the world since the world began, that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hands of all that hate us.
And so, once again, we're talking about what that salvation is. That salvation is to be saved from their enemies. And what happened that we already established that happened in the past. Northern kingdom went into captivity by the Assyrians. Southern kingdom went into captivity by the Babylonians. So both of them are currently in the hands of their enemies. But Luke 171 is talking about saving them from the hand of their enemies. All right, cool. So this is we can go ahead, we can throw out spiritual Israel. We're just gonna throw out that idea. We're gonna focus on those other three, the first three ideas of what happened to the physical descendants of Israel. And what we're going to do is that we're going to start off with Northern Kingdom and try to understand what, how can we narrow it down? Is there a formula that we can use to say, hey, is this group of people over here? Because let me remind you, there was one theory that there are subgroups of people in different places that may be descendants of these Israelites. So I'm going to introduce you to the Apocrypha for those that don't understand or don't know it. We're going to go to Second Ezra chapter 13, and we're going to start at verse 40. And not yet, a little bit early. Uh, what we're going to talk about here is that, or what I'm going to tell you about the Apocrypha is that this was a collection of books that was originally in the Bible. If you was to look up what the 1611 King James version of the Bible had, it had these books. And these books gives you a lot of history that's in between the Old and the New Old and the New Testament. So let's get Second Ezra chapter 13, verses 40 through 45. And this is going to tell us a little bit more history of what's happening in between the Old and New Covenant.
And tribes which were carried away prisoners.
Give me start that over at 40.
Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, who Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into other lands. But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow place of the river. For the Most High then showed signs of them and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. And the same region is called Ahazareth.
You got it. And so now we have this new information that's being presented, and they're saying that they went away to a place that mankind never knew. Well, what place in mankind was never known? And then it even names this place for you. It says it's Azareth. Where is Azareth at? What is Azareth? Is there any scholar or any type of information that we can find on this word to understand where did Northern Kingdom go after they left Assyria, after they was in captivity? Well, there is a Jewish Bible or a Jewish encyclopedia that actually gives you a very clear idea of where this is. So let's go ahead and pull that up. And so now we see here it says Azareth, the name of the land beyond the great river, far away from the habitation of man, in which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell, observing the laws of Moses until the time of the restoration, according to Esdras. But see here, Columbus identified America with this land. So now it's like, whoa, wait a second. Where does Christopher Columbus come into this understanding? Well, if you was to do your research on Christopher Columbus and understanding how he got the idea to sail west instead of sailing around Africa to get back to, I believe, to India or East Asia, he actually wasn't looking for East Asia. And we're gonna get into it. We're gonna try to prove that a little bit. One way that we're gonna prove it is that he brought a interpreter with him to try to understand the people that he was going to meet, the people that he was trying to meet. So we're gonna go over here and we're gonna talk about Louis de Torres. I'm probably butchering that name. Louis de Torres was Christopher Columbus' interpreter on his first voyage to America. Now, the interesting thing about this is that de Torres was a converso, a Jewish person who was forced to convert to Christianity or be put to death according to the Spanish Inquisition. Apparently born Joseph ben Halevi Harel in Moguer, Spain. De Torres was chosen by Columbus for his knowledge of Hebrew, Celtic, and Arabic. If Christopher Columbus was trying to find a new route to China or to a new route to East Asia, why did he bring somebody who knew Hebrew? That doesn't make sense. Actually, on this or on our sister channel, there's actually a longer version of this presentation. It's called A Tale of Two Kingdoms. Uh, what is actually known about Christopher Columbus is that when you're going into his history, he actually wasn't looking for that. He knew where he was going. There's actually a popular movie that's in that video that brings out that he says it. He was like, "No, I'm looking for a new world," according to Esdras. I invite you to not let this be the last time that you do research on this topic. I invite you to prove all things that's being said and go into understanding and go into reading what Christopher Columbus, what his diaries were saying, that he was not looking for East Asia. That was a lie, just like he lied and said he discovered a part of a land that people was living at. You can't discover some people live at. But anyways, we know that, or we can make a fair assumption that if people from the, or we can make a fair assumption that the natives of America, or the so-called natives, these was the 10 tribes that came over. And if you're looking into some of their cultures, when they're wearing the fringes on their jackets, that's biblical. When you're looking at some of their cultures about how they kept new moons, that's biblical. Now, of course, you also see inside their culture where they went off and they went into sacrificing. They built these pyramids to start killing their children and doing all these different wicked things. Yeah, that's what they was doing in First Kings. That's why they got in trouble in the first place. So we see that they left to try to go to this new land to be isolated from the rest of the world to keep the law, statutes, commandments that the Most High gave them, and they went continuing in their wickedness to do the exact same thing they've always been doing. But let's talk about Southern Kingdom now, because now like we kind of have a good idea, or we have a good assumption that we can say, okay, these people are Northern Kingdom. Let's figure out who Southern Kingdom is. Let's go to Isaiah 11 and verse 12. Let's go ahead and take that off.
And he
Let's start that over. Let's get Isaiah chapter 11, verse 12.
12, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth.
And so now we see in Isaiah, in this chapter, we need to understand that it's saying that Israel, or it's saying that Judah was dispersed to the four corners of the earth. Now, does this mean like four actual corners? No. When we're talking about the four corners, we're talking about the entirety of the earth. It said that Judah was dispersed to the entirety of the earth. That's what this means. But why would they be dispersed? Because we see that Israel was taken into captivity and taken out of the land. Judah was taken into captivity, but they were still kind of in the land. So let's go into our second piece of history. And this is also a piece of history that you would know about if you read the Apocrypha. Because then you can go into Maccabees, so you can understand some of the different wars that started to happen between the Jewish and the Romans. And so now we're going to go ahead and get that. If we can pull that up. Okay, so now we have here the Jewish and Roman Wars. The Jewish Roman Wars were a series of large scale revolts by the Jews of Judea against the Roman Empire between 66 and 135 CE. The conflict was driven by Jewish aspirations to restore the political independence lost when Rome conquered the Hasmonean kingdom and unfolded over three major uprisings. But we're going to skip down to the second paragraph. We'll talk about this. The Jewish Roman wars had a devastating impact on the Jewish people, turning them from a major population in the Eastern Mediterranean into a dispersed and persecuted minority. We'll say, okay, now they got dispersed and they got persecuted because they kept losing these wars. They won some of them. These catastrophic events expanded and strengthened the Jewish diaspora. So now we're saying, okay, this is the diaspora. This is what other diasporas do we kind of hear about? What's the kind of the only other diaspora that we usually hear about? But we're not going to let the cat out the bag yet. But we know here because of this history that afterwards they kept fighting the Romans. They was trying to still get that independence that they had lost, but eventually they just got dispersed all over the place. And now to go back to Isaiah 11, it's saying that they. So now we're going to go here. We're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64, because what we have to keep in mind is that both of these kingdoms no longer serve God. They both went against what the Most High was telling them to do. So the blessings did not count. But in the same covenant that their forefathers agreed to, there was curses. So let's get that first curse. Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and 64. And the Most High shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
So now we're starting to understand why was they scattered. They were scattered because they was a cursed people. This was these curses starting to really kick in and take an effect. Now let's understand, or let's take a moment to understand. It says even wood and stone. What could that wood and stone mean when you're serving other God? What is a other God or maybe a other religion that's wood and stone? Or what is one that is wood? What's the other one that's stone? What's the two biggest religions in the world today? Christianity. What is their symbol? The cross, the wooden cross. What's the second biggest religion in the world? You have Muslims. And what do they have? They have the, I think it's the stone of Mecca.
Copper stone.
So, go ahead. What was it?
Copper stone.
The copper stone. So now it's already saying that you're going to go off and you're going to start worshiping these other religions that is not found here. But let's go ahead and let's keep building on this. Let's get Jeremiah 50 and 33, because we know that. So now we have a pretty accurate understanding that Northern Kingdom, the 10 tribes, they was definitely in the Americas. And we also understand that Southern Kingdom, they was all over the place. So how can we further kind of identify who's who? Jeremiah 50 and 33.
Jeremiah 50 and 33. Thus saith the Most High of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go.
So now we understand, like, okay, in one of these places that Judah was dispersed to, they was captives with their Northern Kingdom brothers. Who was captives in the Americas? We're painting a very clear picture here, but I'm just, for giggles, I'm not going to tell you exactly who it was yet. We're just going to keep reading through these curses to try to understand who these people are. Because to go back into the beginning of this video, what was you talking about? We have two other groups of people that claim to be descendants of the physical Israelites. We have the Jewish people, and that's currently occupying the land of Israel right now. And then you also have these other random pockets of people all over the place. Let's see which curses fit each people, because we understand we've already established in the past they definitely went off. They definitely stopped hearkening to the voice of the Most High. The curses of the covenant has to be on these people. So we're going to skip around and do Omni, and let's start off with 16.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and 16. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field.
So what group of people in America, and we're just using America as an example because we can still use the same playbook to look at different people all over the world and try to say, okay, do they fit these curses? But speaking on America, what group of people is cursed in the city and cursed in the field? What group of people can they try to go to work in the morning, and you got ICE trying to kick down their door and run up in their workplace to try to arrest them? Like, you're not safe in the city. What group of people have been known, or you've had groups of these people just hanging from trees in random countrysides? What group of people can't even go on a walk through his neighborhood where he lives at in the countryside without being gunned down? Let's go ahead. Let's continue to build this. Let's get verse 32.
This is the book of Deuteronomy 28 and 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thy eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the days long, and there shall be no might in thy hand.
And so now we're saying, okay, now your sons and daughters is going to be taken away from you. So in history, was the Jewish people, was their sons and daughters taken away from them? Is there any groups of people in the Americas whose sons and daughters were taken away from them? And one thing that a lot of people don't even know, just a little piece of hidden history, a lot of the natives, their sons and daughters was taken away from them. They were taken away from them so they'd be sent to these private schools to reprogram them and to not know all the deep culture that they had. So it also still fits these 10 tribes, but it does that not also fit Black people? Did we not go through slavery and we had to give our sons, or we had to sit there and watch our sons and daughters be sold off to other people. Let's keep painting this picture. Let's go to 37.
Deuteronomy 28 and 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether the Most High shall lead thee.
And so now we're talking about a byword. What is a byword? In the Bible, a byword generally means a proverb, an object of scorn, or a symbol of ridicule, often in a negative context. Who in America is the most is a group of people in America that have a negative reputation no matter where they go in the world. No matter where they go in the world, they'd be like, "Oh, that person's from. I can see that person. He's from. Like, no, don't let my sons and daughters marry those people. They don't. Those people are not good. Those people are bad. Those people just always seem to can't get right. Blacks. That's simple. I mean, I can't think of anybody else that is more of a byword than us. But let's continue to hammer this home. Let me get 41.
41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
So now we're talking about your sons and daughters going into captivity. Once again, we're still talking about, or we're painting a vivid picture of slavery at this point. Let's get 43.
43. The strangers that is with thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low.
So now we're talking about the stranger that's within you. Well, when the natives was in America before Christopher Columbus came and before all these other people started coming there, they was above high. They was the owners of this land. Now today they've been shut away into reservations and they are very low. They don't run this country. They don't have the freedoms, the liberties of the country that they've seen first. They was here first. They don't have that no more. I would say that this particular curse definitely relates to them. Let me get 44.
44. He shall lead to thee, and thou shalt not lead to Salakia. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail.
So now we're talking about what group of people do not lend to other people. How many black banks have you seen? Just until recently, do I know of maybe like two or three black banks, and they're still extremely small. Uh, Not too long ago, there was a situation with a popular bank where there was just like, oh, we found out that for years and for decades that you wouldn't give minorities good loans, or you would give them worse interest rates. These are easy things that you can Google and find out that happen to a certain sect of people in America. Well, again, we're just going to keep hammering this home because the more that you understand these curses, the more easy it is to identify who Israel is today. Let me get 45.
45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee.
And now it's saying that these now it's saying that these curses is going to destroy these people. Well, what people have been destroyed? What people know where they're from? What people know what their actual language is before English was given to us? What people had to recreate a culture? And now I'm not saying this to talk down about black culture because we know from the concrete we grew a rose. But when we peel back that concrete, we understand that no, this wasn't a rose. This was actually an olive branch. And we gotta get back to the root of what this is. When we really start to understand this Bible, we understand who we are as a people, and then okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get 46.
46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
For how long?
Forever.
And so now we see it's going to be a sign upon their seed forever. This is still talking about physical Israel. So if you don't believe in the Bible, then we can just throw away all this saying. But if you believe in the Bible, you have to concede that forever these curses was going to be on these people. Well, who does these curses belong to? Whose history fit? We just go ahead and throw away the whole Jewish idea, guy. Like they had one bad thing happen to them in history, and that one bad thing that happened in that one war. I don't know what YouTube likes and doesn't like, so I'm very careful with my words. That doesn't compare to 400 years of slavery. It doesn't. Let's get verse 48.
Deuteronomy 28:48. Therefore shalt thou serve thy enemies, which the Most High shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst, in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
So now we're talking about you're going to want in all things. I'm going to break this down a little bit. If I want to buy some food, can I, and we're not talking about individuals, we're talking about as a nation of people. Can we go as a nation and get food from each other? Do we have businesses that are selling these things? If I wanted to get clothing, can I go to a all black owned business to get these things? A lot of these things has only happened recently where we have certain companies that we can try to do it, but it's mostly on a very small scale. So we see that these curses has been rolled back a little bit, but these still fit one or a few groups of people in this world. You would have to say that these are blacks. You would have to say that these are Hispanics and Native Americans. You would have to look at all these other different places and say, okay, these curses fit these people in all these little places. I think we have a winner. We're gonna keep hammering it home. Let me get 49. Actually, no, before we get that, I challenge everybody to go into Google and I want you to Google yoke of iron upon neck. Now, when I first did this Google search a few years ago, you know what you're going to see. You're going to see a bunch of slavery, all in the Americas, all the people that look like you and me. Now Google has kind of cleaned it up. Sometimes you got to put slave at the end. But if you put that at the end, you're not going to see any other group of people. You're not going to see the Jewish people with iron around their necks where it's coming out on each side. That was never something that happened to them. That was only something that happened on a large scale to us. Let me get 54.
Deuteronomy
Actually,
28,
I'm skipping one. Let me get 49.
49. 49. The Most High shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
Now, do you think it's a coincidence that it's talking about it's going to bring a nation from the far end of the earth, and that nation was flying swift as an eagle?
Mm.
Do we really think that's a coincidence, or is the Bible clearly giving you clear context clues to who this nation is? And when you understand a lot of the other different prophecies, especially the one in Daniel, we're talking about that statue. If you understand who that feet is, it's clearly it's easy. It's blatant in our face, but unfortunately, our people just don't want to accept it because they've been programmed for so long. But let's go ahead. I'm gonna keep proving it because we haven't even got to the biggest blatant sign that is on his people. Let's get 54.
Deuteronomy 28:54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil towards his brother, and towards the wife of his bosom, and towards the remnant of his children, which he shall leave.
So now we see like what group of people pretty much just the family unit just can't get right. Why can't that family unit get right? Well, maybe, just maybe, the curse is upon them. 56.
Deuteronomy 28 and 56. The tender and delicate woman among you, which will not avenger to set the sole of her feet upon the ground for delicacy or delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil towards the husband of her bosom, and towards her son, and towards her daughter.
And now, once again, you have to always keep in mind that this was going to be a sign on your seed forever. And so, once again, like what, and this isn't to go into a gender war. I could say the same thing about men as much as I could say about women. But what nation of people is actively or loudly on social media just talking evil about each other? Once again, like this is 62.
Deuteronomy 28 and 62. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God.
63.
And it shall come to pass that as the Lord rejoice over you to do you good and to multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to nigh. And ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it.
And so now we're even seeing that because we chose as a people to go against the Most High God, to go against His word, He did this to us. He destroyed us because we made a choice to say, "Oh, nah, these commandments. Oh, where my fringes? Nah, I don't want to do that. Don't have no idolatries. No, I like my idols. Don't do those small things like having a beard and not cutting or rounding the edges of your hair. We decided to go off and to do everything that we made a covenant with the Most High and said, nah, we're going to obey you. And we soon later forgot. A hard head and stiff necked people, like always. But let's get 68. Let's get the biggest one.
68. And the Most High shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spoke unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
And so now we're saying that you're going to go into Egypt again. But where in the Bible does it say that the people of Israel as a large group went into Egypt again? It doesn't. So we know that, and if you're understanding what Egypt means, Egypt was likened to bondage in a number of scriptures. And so we're going to say that, okay, now you're going to be brought into bondage again. That makes sense. By way of ships. What group of people was brought into bondage by way of ships? And then we're going to go to it says you're going to be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. Let's look up if you go and look up the definition of these bondmen and bondwomen, we're talking about slaves. And no man shall buy you, no man shall redeem you. That's what that means. Because we know, according to the law, in order to be uh to get out of slavery, you had to either buy your way out, you had to work your way out, you had to be redeemed in some way, or shape, or form. So to go back into 68 to give a modern translation of what this means, it says that people, you're going to go into slavery by ships. Are you going to go in, you're going to go into captivity by ships and be sold as slaves? Now, what group of people? Let's stop asking that question. Blacks. Blacks is the group of people, according to the Bible, that fit these curses to a T. And honestly, we fit a lot more curses, but these are kind of the easiest ones that we can go into, that we can say, no, that's a no-brainer. Like we don't have to philosophize. We don't have to go in to learn Hebrew. Like these are simple. Anybody, if you can read these to a fourth grader, and they'll be like, no, that's those people right here, easily. It's not anybody else. That's their history. But let's talk about Jeremiah 33, 7 to 8. Let's try to bring this into it and try to understand what that future is.
This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 33 and verse 7. And I will cast the captivity of Judah and the captivity of Israel to return, and will build them as at the first. And I will cleanse them from all their iniquities, whereby they have sinned against me. And I will pardon all their iniquities, whereby they have sinned, and whereby they have transgressed against me.
So now we finally got some good news. We're reading here in Jeremiah, we're reading this future prophecy where it says that they will be gathered and they will be cleansed of their sins. So let's keep all this in mind, and let's read over the root scripture of this lesson. Let's read that Hosea 1:10 and 11, and we're going to get an understanding of what this means. Go ahead.
10 and 11 or 10?
10 and 11.
It's only 11 on here, so I got to get it.
Actually, just give me 11. That's fine.
This is the book of Hosea, chapter 1 and 11. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appointed themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel.
And once again, we know that the day of Jezreel is a day of of deliverance, of being delivered from your enemies. And so when we understand what happened to the Israelites, past, present, and future, we now understand why does God allow suffering. We now understand why does it seem like Black people, Hispanic people, Native Americans have gotten into wars between everybody else. We also understand, okay, what was the cause? What was the effect? You stop following the commandments. So how do we get back to those blessings? We follow the commandments. See this. That's why this lesson was so vital. And I hope this lesson piqued the interest for you. I hope that you don't stop here, but you start to question things that's been taught to you that does not line up with what this Bible is saying, with the things that I brought out. I hope this isn't your last lesson that you watch. I hope that you're hungry and that I planted a seed maybe for you to understand or to stop shielding yourself from the truth. With that, I say shalom.